Alright. LOL, TTYL, LMFAO. These are all cute little acronyms that we use for text messaging. By a show of hands, who texts on their cell phone? Another show of hands, who texts on their texts or talk on their cell phone while driving a vehicle? I'm guilty. I'm guilty. Did you know that no state bans all cell phone use, handheld or hands-free, for all drivers? But many prohibit all cell phone use to certain drivers. There are severe consequences for using your cell phone while driving. And this is why using a handheld cell phone while driving ought to be outlawed in all states. During this presentation, I will be highlighting how cell phone use while driving is considered just as dangerous as drunk driving. How cell phone manufacturers are finding new ways for you to use your cell phone hands-free while driving. And share a sad and disturbing story about how a 2-year-old girl lost her life because of a driver who was texting while they're driving. In 2003, the University of Utah conducted a study, a disturbing study, and found that people are as impaired when they drive while texting or talking on a cell phone as they are when they drive intoxicated at the legal blood alcohol limit of 0.08%. Frank Drews, an assistant professor of psychology and co-author of the study, stated that motorists who talked on either handheld or hands-free devices drove slightly slower, were 9% slower to hit the brakes, displayed 24% more variation in falling distance as their attention switched between driving and conversing, were 19% slower to resume normal speed after braking, and were more likely to crash than drunk drivers. It's pretty sad. In my eyes, after just getting into a severe car accident 2 weeks ago, this is very scary, knowing that there are people out on the road completely sober and talking on their phone, but are considered more dangerous than drunk drivers. This leads me to my next point, that how cell phone manufacturers are developing new ways for you to use your cell phone without having to use your hands. This can still cause a problem while on the road. Apple has its new Siri software. The Android network has its new advanced Bluetooth recognition systems. Just because your cell phone has an advanced software on it to where you don't have to use your hands doesn't mean it still can't be a distraction. According to the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society, cell phone distraction causes 2,600 deaths, 330,000 injuries, and $1.5 million instances of property damage in the United States every year. I'm sure most of us have some sort of Bluetooth technology in our vehicle to help us, use our phone while we're driving. Based on personal experience, I can tell you that even though I have a Bluetooth device in my vehicle, it is very distracting using it because sometimes I find myself looking and speaking into the microphone instead of just speaking and keep my eyes on the road. As I stated earlier, no state bans all cell phone use while driving. Instead, they have certain restrictions on using your cell phone, which is typically banned for novice drivers aged 16 to 18 years old. Excuse me. It saddens me to share a story with you all today about a Sonoma State University student who was sentenced on November 16, 2011 to 5 days in jail. 5 days. And nearly 4 months of home detention for running down and killing a 2-year-old girl in Roner Park while texting on her phone. Caitlin Dunaway, 19 years old, who pleaded no contest in September to September 11th to misdemeanor vehicular manslaughter, could have faced only up to a year in jail for the December 1st, 2010 crash that killed young Callie Murray. I can't believe that something that involved an innocent little girl losing her life could be considered a misdemeanor for someone who was so careless behind the wheel. In conclusion, today I have discussed how phone use while driving is considered just as dangerous as drunk driving, how cell phone manufacturers are trying new ways for you to use your cell phone without using your hands, and share a devastating story in which a little girl lost her life due to someone being so careless behind the wheel. I feel that the punishments for driving while using your cell phone are way too lenient. In order to correct these problems, perhaps we can make the punishments more severe. Since there's a study that states drunk driving and cell phone use while driving go hand in hand, maybe we can make their punishments a little more similar. Nationwide Insurance also conducted a survey stating that 80% of the respondents in the survey support a ban for text messaging while driving. And 2/3, 67% of the respondents say that they are supportive of laws restricting phone calls while driving. With survey results like this, I'm sure that we can pass cell phone restriction use while driving in all states. I hope that you all have learned a great deal about the danger of driving while using your cell phone. I know I have. So the next time I need to LOL, or I'm going to pull over in LMFAO. I'll TTYL. Thank you.
All right, Matthew, what did you think?
Well, definitely having everybody raise their hands was a good audience interaction, especially with the little text quote thingies with LOL, LMFAO, and definitely got us into it. And then the preview of the main points for the cell use is as dangerous as drunk driving, and then cell companies having more advanced software, and then of course the personal story at the end. That was very good. And then the stats for the first part, I thought were really interesting. I mean, I personally, which I'm sure everybody else here did not know, that you're as impaired as a drunk driver when you're texting. I mean, maybe you've thought about something like that, but never actually hearing that kind of quote from a professional. It's pretty eye-opening. And then some other points where the 1.5 million property damage in the U.S. That was kind of shocking for me. I mean, really? 1.5 million? And then the personal experience, you saying it's very distracting, looking while you're speaking into the microphone, and the personal story about the 2-year-old girl. That was sad to say the least. And then your conclusion, you reviewed the main points again, and you stood on your point how you want to make drunk driving, that punishment similar, or if not more, in comparison to the cell phone driving. So, all in all, good job, man.
All right. I thought the opening was fine. You have a good statement of what it is you're talking about, and we know where you're going. You preview what the content is going to be. I'm not sure why that second point is persuasive in nature. It sounds informative in nature. I think there is a way to make it persuasive in nature. If, for instance, arguing that people believe that technology is rescuing them from these dangers, when in fact it doesn't really solve the problem, and in fact in some ways might make it worse. That's the way it should be labeled, as opposed to, there's new technology that's coming online. Well, what about the new technology? Tell us what the inference is that you're making here, as opposed to just labeling it. And on the third point, I think instead of telling us, labeling it as the tragic story there, tell us, say, and then I want to finally talk about some consequences, and then save the story till the point when you get there. I think that would work a little bit more effectively. The story does work effectively, and you've got an interesting emotional perspective on it. I think you could probably develop the solution about treating cell phone use more like drunk driving, especially, for instance, when accidents have occurred. It's one of those things where I can see, okay, somebody gets pulled over, they get a ticket for using their cell phone while they're driving, and that's $100, that sort of thing. But if there's an accident involved and it's demonstrated that the cell phone was involved, then treating it like a drunk driving thing, maybe that would be the way to go, or something along those lines. Is there any way that we would suggest that it would be more effective if the punishment was higher? You do need to talk about, this is one of those things where the genie's out of the bottle, and putting the cork back in is not always easy. What kinds of things can we do to minimize those dangers? I think you've got the right idea here. It just needs a little bit more development. On the presentation, I think that you're doing a good job on your voice and the eye contact. You still do a little bit of that pacing. It's not quite as bad as it's been in other incidents, but it's still a lot of back and forth. Instead of emphasizing an idea, it just seems like that's your energy coming out there. All right, thank you.